Chapter 86. I opened my eyes wide at the subsequent words of the Crown Prince. The beginning of oppression? Yes, in those days when magic wasn't commercialized this much, some wizards tried to build a country called Valta and take over the world. Speechless, the ancient people who won the victory after a fierce war erased Valta from the map and rejected the wizard. Speechless, I thought it was just one of the ancient myths. Now then, that's all true. The Crown Prince laughed in vain and shook two scrolls. It looks like he was trying to carve a portal from Valta to the Imperial Palace. Because of the distance, there are limits to scrolling. I looked back at the skeleton with a little dim eyes. The Crown Prince was right. If that ancient sorcerer had not died in the middle of his magic, the current Inca Empire may have been occupied by the Imperial Palace and become a tribute to the wizards. The faces of the animal masks he was hiding came to mind. The traces of history were truly wonderful and marvelous at any time. So I liked archaeology because it used to show plainly that the human situation could change by one place. If I knew the first language, I could use this scroll to get out of the woods right away. It was when I was lost in thought. In conclusion, this is just an old map piece. The Crown Prince added, kicking his tongue as he was sorry, but we can still look and find a way. We don't need this. He threw away the ancient Valta map he was holding onto his jacket. Until then, the system window was still floating. I looked alternately at the square window and the scrolls given as rewards. Is this really useful? But it's worth losing ground. In this crazy game, everything was better than nothing. I pressed yes in agony. At the same time, the letters in the system's window changed. System. 2 old magic map scroll received. Magic scrolls are available 3 times each. System. If you want to use, point out where you want to move on the map and shout the spell. Spell Yeta Du Dasi Pasi. What's wrong with this spell pronunciation? I was fed up with the odd starter, but I couldn't do much because I wanted to get out of this fucking forest. The scroll. I think we can use it, I said, pointing to the northern forest map he was holding. The princess? Yes. You know how to play ancient spell? The Crown Prince looked back at me as if he had heard something bizarre. I was a little offended by the obvious connotation of how can you do that. Why do you think so? No, don't you think Princess doesn't have any money? I've learned some ancient spell just in case for unexpected situation. Fortunately, mobile magic is universal. I made up a lie with a calm face, something to know if it's actually universal or not. All you have to do is go out. This is the spirit of nobility. Basic. However, I couldn't stand the look of a man who looked down on me when I spoke with the sharp force on the basic. The prince's face became strange. Maybe the basic skills of the nobles have changed while I was at war. He urged with a wry voice, you should give it a try. Where should we go? It's better not to let the others know about these things as much as possible, so I'd prefer a place a little further from the entrance, where there are people. He opened the map and carefully checked it before pointing it out. Let's go here. As soon as he touched it, the paper was drawn and enlarged. Soon after, a black and white line of a forest scenery appeared. Suddenly, a rabbit hopped over it. It was an amazing scene even when I saw it again. It's a small animal hunting zone. Where the Crown Prince pointed out was amazing. It was the beginning of all this. I rolled up the Valta map scroll and quickly wore the jacket I had laid on the floor, and I didn't forget the crossbow. I'll try it then, so keep your finger on it. Callisto's head was raised with a suspicious look. Just just know you're out of this forest because of me. I slowly opened my mouth, bulging inward at the man I wanted to leave behind. Yeta, du, dase, posse. It was when I reluctantly shouted the ridiculous spell. System, would you like to use scroll through ancient magic maps? Wants to move to your area? Yes or no? A white square window appeared before my eyes. I pressed yes, without hesitation, and at the same time my eyes were blinking. That was true. When I awoke again to the sudden voice, we had already escaped the goddamn cave and sat in the middle of of a quiet forest. System, scroll through the ancient magic map, North Forest, 1/3. I never thought the princess would have such a useful ability. That's quite different from the rumors in the air. The crown prince looked at me with a with the look of a real surprise. Favorability, 35%. At the same time, favorability rose slightly. Is it a compliment or a criticize? I wasn't happy at all. I looked with salty eyes over the blondes glistening in the early morning sun. I'll take this because I have to make a formal investigation. The prince himself rolled out the map of the northern forest. Sure, I also passed the Volta map that I was pinning. Even if I had it anyway, I didn't have anything to write about. Looking around, I could see a road cross the cattle hunting area where I had been lost. Then let's go back, Your Highness. It was fortunate that I could come back quickly without wandering. I immediately shook my seat and got up. So did the Crown Prince, who packed the scrolls in his arms. But at that moment, speechless, the Crown Prince, who had just risen, suddenly grabbed his head and stumbled. Your Highness, I was startled and grabbed him by the arm and helped him. The cave was so dark that I could not notice it. The prince's face was blank as he saw it again under the bright sunshine. Your Highness, are you all right? Since when has he been like this? A cold sweat dripped down along the facial line of Callisto, who was tired of white crabs. Unconsciously, I reached out and wiped his face dry. His skin on the palm of his hand was appallingly cold. It overlapped with him, who was unable to come to his senses when he woke up at the dawn. At dawn, you're getting hurt is wrong, right? You said not to die in front of you, but you don't want to clean up the body, do you? Are you kidding me? I shouted in a loud voice. The Crown Prince smiled faintly with a pale look. It's all right, I won't die. No, this can't do. Lean on me, let's go back. Princess. The Crown Prince stopped me, who was dragging him and hurried him. Don't let her be cold-hearted like a villainess. Just tell someone to go and take me with him. What the hell is that? Or I'll regret when I wake up. It was then the Crown Prince, who had threatened to end it in a feeble voice, fell down like a doll with a broken string. Your Highness. I sat down on the floor with a scream. Your Highness, Callisto's body was shaken hard, but there was no reappearance of the tightly lowered enemy line. I leaned my head against his chest in a panic, and like in the morning, the sound of the pulsating was low and small. I was scared even though I knew Mildred wouldn't die. This way can't do. I jumped up from my seat. Your Highness, I'll be right back with the people, so please wait a moment, okay? Leaving the Crown Prince unanswered behind, I clenched my teeth and began to run down the road. Hurry up and bring someone in. Fortunately, the small animal hunting zone was located not far from the entrance of the forest. It was a divine move to scroll. Before long, I reached the area I saw when we first entered the hunting ground. It was only a few moments before the guards reached the huge open space. Hey, Wawa, in the woods, the Crown Prince. I screamed at the two nearest knights, breathing heavily. At that moment, the two knights, who were surprised to see me appearing out of nowhere, suddenly grabbed my arms. The princess is back. The knights shouted loudly toward the tent that organized the hunting competition. Then the other knights came rushing around and surrounded me in a flash. What is it? It seems like a sinner is being arrested. An ominous premonition climbed up the end of the bridge. Hey, look in the forest, the Crown Prince. I frowned and shouted once again to the guards, my arms clasped tightly together. It was then someone walked fast through the night surrounding me. It was the captain of the guards, who had a face-to-face meeting the day before yesterday. Princess Penelope Eckert, you're under arrest for attempted murder of a nobleman. I opened my mouth wide. A sudden arrest? An uneasy foreboding always hit the mark. End of chapter 86. Marquis, his aide rushed into the cabana and Marquis Ellen. Princess Eckert has just returned from the woods alone. He was immediately arrested and sent to prison. Alone? What about the Crown Prince? What happened to the Crown Prince? The Princess Testimony also found the fallen prince and was rushed to the palace. Status, he's still out of his mind, and some said. The aide bowed down and whispered to the ear of the Marquis Ellen. They says it's not clear if it's poison, but they found some minor injuries on the body. Really? I'm saying. The old man's face lit up. It's good to order some weapons to be poisoned in case of a fierce battle. It was a poison that searched far and wide desert countries. The poison did not appear immediately, but gradually spread a day or two later, so it was appropriate to escape from the list of suspects in the event of a failed assassination. Maybe we could have a portrait like this. The Marquis Ellen suddenly glistened sharply as he imagined a happy future. You must have done a good job, right? You said the trail was cut off from the cliff. Yes, we've searched the woods for all the weapons that have fallen. The Layla new people hid it well in the basement of the Imperial Palace. Good job. The awakened still don't remember things just before they fall. Yes, the Marquis. Good for us. The Marquis Ellen flashed his eyes. How much effort did you put into this event? Upon returning from the war, the Crown Prince was the first to break ties with the Second Prince and the underground forces. Because of this, we could not hire an assassination team as before. Thus, 6 families, the main forces of the Second Prince faction, were forced to recruit ambitious men. They set the hunting competition as a historical event, transformed them into capital aristocrats, and trained them to assassinate them. One of them was Baron Tollet, a distant collateral of Ellen. However, only 5 or 6 people could not face the Crown Prince. Just in time, the interests of Lila's new country were in sync. The Queen was even mobilized to bring the men who were supposed to support her into the palace. So we sent 20 assassins to the Crown Prince. What? Everybody fainted. After hearing from his servants that all the assassins had been found stunned, he felt faint. Fortunately, it was not difficult to find witnesses and assistants who were with the Crown Prince. She threatened everyone to be struck by a crossbow and become an idiot. She must have made the Baron like this. The prince's whereabouts were unknown unknown, along with testimony from Lady Callan, who shouted angrily at her late fiancé. Besides, the Crown Prince must have slaughtered the assassins with a knife. The failure of the assassination was not enough, and the fact that witnesses existed made the second prince feel like the sky was falling apart. But anytime there is a hole that will rise. Now all we have to do is lay the blame on the princess. Marquis Ellen played the trick to put the blame on the princess, the only witness on the contrary. It will be easy to convince people anyway, as the princess is called the Duke's crazy dog, and her reputation is running at the worst of the worst. At first, he tried to blur the issue of by hating the player with the harm of the noble families, but even the crown prince fell into unconsciousness. It was clear that God Layla had helped. I can give that ugly Eckert a blow. Marquis Allen giggled with a satisfied face. The most important thing was to get out of the suspect list immediately. That way we can plan for the future. In that sense, the princess, the main culprit behind the assassination failure, was a very good prey. While the eyes are on Eckart's mad dog, the assassins sent from the new country are released from the palace and had all evidence destroyed. If the crown prince who is lost dies like this, it would be icing on the cake, but it didn't matter if he didn't die right away. Like all the assassination attempts we've tried so far without proof, the crown prince's claim would mean nothing. You'd better put the blame on not only for the murder of the noble, but also for the royal family. When the crown prince wakes up again, everything related to the assassination will be neatly done with Princess Eckart's crime. At the perfect plan, Marcus Allen laughed again with a look of relief. By the way, in the toilet side, he still hasn't come to his senses. Yes, still. What worthless bastard. At the sight of his aide blurring the end of his words, Marquis Allen kicked his tongue. I got some expensive hemolysis and made him play a role, and somehow he got even more distracted than before. Baron Tollett was originally a late developed child since an early age. It didn't make sense that he had no one to offer to the event because he was the only son of the queen. After searching for it, I finally brought along a rather dull but healthy plan. He spent a lot of money to feed him the intelligence medicine made of hemolytic blood with a lot of mana, and to engage Callan to make him a capital aristocrat. Now that he'd been acting like a human being, the Marquis of Ellen, who was unsatisfactory with a disgusting expression, suddenly rose from his seat. Let's go to Baron Tollett for now. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Baron Tollett's inside the cabana was still a crucible of the chaos. It's a magical side effect. The royal physician who had seen the doctor shook his head and with a flutterly. Magic side effects. Well, then what happens? The short-term body's excessive exposure to mana temporarily impaired brain function. He had no choice but to take his time and recover. The palace doctor, who expressed regret that there was nothing he could do right away, left Cabana. Hehehehe, in the forest, saw the goddess of death and hunting. Hehehehe. Please wake up. A woman who looked at her drooling with a mad fiancé screamed nervously. Count Callan, standing restless, comforted her daughter. Gloria, baby, calm down. What's all this, father? I can't carry my face around because I'm embarrassed. Gloria, so why are you watching that crazy bitch participate in this hunting competition? Gloria couldn't contain her anger. Her blue hair ruffled violently. Count Callan could not confess that the diamond mine he had received from Eckhart from his daughter had the condition no more mention of his daughter. Hehehehe, goddess, goddess. Meanwhile, Marquis Allen's nephew drooled and frowned at the sound of his madness. It was then, the Count of Kellyn. A stampede entered Baroness Tollett's cabana. Have you come, Marquis? Stay seated. The Marquis Allen stood up and waved at the two men who were about to say hello. He was here too. That's great. It was noisy outside. What happened? Princess Eckert is back. At the latter's words, Lady Callan stood up and shouted, Where is she now? She had been arrested and sent to prison now. God helped us. The Marquis soothed Lady Callan, who rose quickly. Well, the only thing that matters now is the testimony of Lady. You can do well, right? Yes, of course. I wasn't the only one at the tea party. Lady Callan shook herself in anger and nodded her head. What happened with Princess Eckert at the tea party? The outpouring of no hostility was like fire. I'll trust you forever. I'm sure Eckert's side is going to be very resistant. Is that all right, my Marquis? Besides, what if the Crown Princess Highness comes back to his senses soon? Only Count Callan expressed concern with a worried look, because Eckhart was never a pushover. Don't worry, there's no evidence, and even the Crown Prince, the only witness and the party concerned, is on the brink of death. But Marquis Allen gave a smile of remorse and tapped Count Callan on the shoulder. And the Emperor is not in the capital. Maybe we can put the assassinations on the table and get rid of the ugly Eckharts. This crisis was rather an opportunity. The board had already been all set up for a solution to the failure of assassination. Originally, the prince who saw the blood of a bear suddenly went crazy and intended to attack Baron Tollett and the nobles. There is only one crown prince on that side, and there are many nobles on this side. It happened in the deep forest with no witnesses, so it was not difficult to insist. However, the sudden appearance of Princess Eckhart and the unconscious crown prince made the situation more favorable. Even if the crown prince opens his eyes, it will be as hard to jump as before. Everything will be over before he wake up. The Marquis Allen's gaze towards the air shone drearily. End of chapter 87. Chapter 88. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. They seized the crossbow I was holding, and I was taken by the knights and trapped in the tower north of the palace. Fortunately, it wasn't an underground prison where felons would be trapped. It was a clean and decent room for the aristocrats right before the trial, where they stayed. It would be hard to believe it was a prison if it weren't for the iron bars on the door. What the hell is going on here? Looking about the room roughly, I sat down on the bed with a deep sigh. I don't know how much Derek's gonna. To be honest, I was more worried about Derek, who was residing in a dreary way, than I was driven to be a nobility assassin. And if you bring this family down again, it won't end up in jail. I said I would not let anything to disgrace my family, but I came all the way here. Haha. I gave up and laughed. I don't know how far the story of this crazy game will go, but one thing is for sure. The situation I'm in is one of the episodes. I took out the dagger I had put inside my jacket. Inside, indeed, I was afraid of Eckart's power to drop birds. The crossbow I was holding might have been confiscated, but they never searched the prince's body. That's why I can be this calm right now, a sign of the assassin. I was so distracted in the cave that I couldn't take a closer look at the dagger. An unknown pattern was carved on the bottom of the poisoned dagger's blade that stabbed the crown prince. I don't know, but the symbol of a certain family was clear. Princess, what are you doing? What do you cut your hair with a dagger? When I was about to cut my hair and write a solo, I remember the prince grabbing my hand. I thought it was really unusual back then. Did he already know that the dagger was poisoned? I looked around the dagger, feeling a little mixed up. Not only the patterns, but also the end of the dagger was decorated with a twist of blue silk thread. It looked like someone gave it to me as a gift to wish me well. Now, if we find out where this symbol belongs, will we become a hero who has overcome the ordeal of being an evil woman? I mumbled to myself, but I put the dagger back in my jacket. It wouldn't be good to have evidence of assassination in somebody's sight. It was the moment. Penelope Eckert. Someone called me through the bars of the prison. Cool blue eyes revealed under a dreary thought. Little Duke? It was Derek. I slowly got up from my seat in a dazed mood and approached the door. Is it because of the special environment of prison? I'm sure you've come to speak ill of me, but the face I saw again in nearly 2 days was very welcome. I checked above his head first. Favorability 29%. It had not fallen further than the last time I saw it. Thank God. I heard you shot a crossbow at a bear. A sigh of relief. Derek opened his mouth, whether it was the beginning of a foot strike. Oh yes, it was a moment when I reluctantly tried to make excuses. Are you hurt anywhere? Suddenly, I heard an incredible sound in my ears. I saw Derek again with unfamiliar eyes. His face was expressionless, unable to predict what emotion he was feeling now. However, as soon as I saw him, I suddenly felt a lump in my chin and throat when he brought out words of concern, not abuse. Perhaps this situation, which I didn't know about, was very unfair. My father and the little Duke, are you all right? Leonard, brother, is... Leonard hurried out of the palace to bring in a wizard carved with magic on the bolts of the crossbow. We have to prove something that's not for killing. I'm sorry, I've made it big. I murmured rather weakly, but on the other hand, my head went fast. In any case, until the appearance of the real princess, the members of Eckarts had been protecting the fake princess. Although they have piled up and piled up, it has led to death. Maybe the solution is to pass the vouchers to Derek right now. After I thought about it, I decided to hand him the dagger. Little Duke, this is a clear proof I have a solution. Actually, Penelope Eckart. I had just opened my mouth to tell him in detail what I had gone through yesterday. Derek snapped off. There are more than 6 witnesses who say they were hit by a crossbow you shot. What? What is? And at the tea party, on the day of the incident, you threatened the women with a crossbow and turned them into idiot. I opened my eyes wide. There are already so many rumors. Well, that's... Your crossbow is fainted with a burst of cerebral palsy and only has a spell of memory loss. Speechless, but Baron Tollet, the fiancé of Lady Kellyn and nephew of Marcus Allen, was really hit by your arrows was really insane. What? I hear he saw a hunting goddess with dark pink hair drooling. Huh. The absurdity of the sound made my mouth water. What happened? Are you saying that one of the assassins was that blue-haired fiancé? I frowned and seriously agonized. I didn't know which was the political faction of Count Kellyn and who was Baron Tollet, but the answer came roughly from the Joker of Marcus Allen, the Queen's outward appearance. So why did you say something different from the facts at the tea party? No. While I was lost in thought, Derek seemed to have already finished all the speculation. This time, tell me what made you upset and shoot the crossbow at the nobles. Speechless. I have to take it as a proof. At that moment, my mind went blank, and I was speechless. I thought, of course, Derek would ask me all the time. Now I thought this situation would lead to an episode of clearing the false charge and shaking off the notoriety of the past. But Derek's words are, I think I'm telling you on the assumption that it's a foregone conclusion that I shot the nobles in a twist. Of course, it was true that I shot the crossbow, but it was shot at masked assassins, not at the faceless aristocrats. I couldn't find anything to say, so I asked in a dejected voice, don't you think I was self-defense? Don't you think it was self-defense for some reason? I hope that Gabriel, the servant who was stunned by testified. Derek answered immediately with a cool face. You gathered strength and appeared suddenly in front of them, who were holding bears. They said you were going to shoot a crossbow to take away the prey. What? Even the bear was running wild, and there was no time to avoid it. Ha! Do you believe that? I asked, but with a burst of laughter. Even if it was real Penelope, it was ridiculous. In common sense, how do you handle so many people by yourself? Of course I did. But if it wasn't by the system, by now I would have been walking along the path with the crown prince. It doesn't matter if I believe or not. But Derek didn't seem to think so at all. The bigger problem is that rumors are spreading that you may have removed all the witnesses to assassinate the crown prince. Assassination. It's getting worse and worse. I didn't hide my bewilderment and showed it all on my face. What can I gain from assassinating the crown prince? The purpose is to get rid of Eckhart with you. Little Duke, first of all, the assassin was not me, but their side. Recognizing that the focus of the conversation with Derek is gradually shifting, I said the truth first. The bear was my prey. The crown prince who was passing by helped me to cut the bear's throat while I was in a difficult situation. Asterisk. I speechless. In common sense, how can I bring down so many men by myself? It's amazing that there are people who believe that nonsense. The truth that will come to light when we investigate. The truth. Suddenly Derek cut me off and recited in a low voice. The truth is whether or not you have shot the crossbow at the nobles and bears. I slowly looked at him, lifting the glare that had lodged in his lips. Little Duke. And the truth is that the crown prince, the only one who will testify that what you say is true, is now struggling with poison. Poison? I was surprised to learn that the crown prince had collapsed due to poison. Poison, but more surprising than that, Derek's attitude toward me, the frosty blue eyes that see me without wavering. I realized only then that he didn't have any faith in me in the first place. If it's a mischievous prank from a thunderbolt, it's a line that can be somehow managed. In other words, the award was beyond redemption. Ha! A dejected laugh broke out without knowing it. I was so grateful and pleased to see the man who came to the prison without turning a blind eye. I was even thinking of handing over the only evidence. Little Duke, will you believe what I say in the first place? No. Speechless, you didn't mean to check with me whether what people were saying was true or not. We'd better finish it quickly before the rumors spread further. Derek softened his voice. The look of soothing, a sulky little sister seemed quite familiar, so you can get out of there right away. If you drag it on for nothing, it's Rotherby. No. I faced him with a cold, subdued gaze. It would be easier and more convenient to take care of that to ay, mali. It would be easier and more convenient to take care of than to have me as an aristocrat. Penelope, don't you know that crazy bitch is a bitch who's always been so mean as to breathe? You're saying that if you turn me into the world's greatest trash and sprinkle a few pennies on me, everyone's going to say that's why you do it? Watch your mouth. Derek stiffened his chin in a plain tone. Someone's got in trouble, and you talking like that. It's not me, it's you who talk nonsense. End of chapter 88. Chapter 89. I bit my teeth hard and gave it a click. It was half impulsive words and half impulsive. The blue eyes seen through the bars slowly widened, and that moment, favorability 3%. Favorability 26%. Have lost one's favor. I stared at it without any expression. Unlike the fallen likes, he didn't seem to understand me right away. What? His late face looked a little dazed. Go back. I gave a blow, but I didn't feel any pleasure at all. Because I have nothing more to say to you. Penelope Eckert. The voice for the full name dropped even lower. Favorability minus 2%, favorability 24%. It was quick to lose favor with him, which was close to 30%, but there was no regret. He was X in the first place. I'm sure I haven't had any expectations. However, it was hard to straighten out the distorted expression. I'll take care of this, so you don't have to take care of it. Just leave it as it has been. Die or be put in jail. You, what the, Penelope? Derek got angry at my careless tone, but I turned around because I didn't want to hear anymore. It was a risky remark, but I had no intention of retracting it now. As long as I don't die, it's no matter. If I lose more fucking favor. It was when I sat on the bed nervously with my back against the iron door. Tapping, I heard footsteps moving away for after a while. Ha! It was amazing. I didn't feel any regret about the way he walked, leaving his nominal sister behind in prison. Yes, this is what you used to be. When I kept my second gift from Derek in a jewelry box, I thought our relationship was actually getting a little better. I didn't really try to get out of my original impression, but I didn't do anything to be called a Thunderbird. Although the relationship between men and women required by the game did not develop, I thought it would be okay for the brother and sister to improve. It will be easy to hold out until I see the ending. But it was all my own illusion. I can handle it without your help, as if it's a red line. I thought, glaring with cold eyes beyond an empty iron window. Took somewhere I could hear the sound of a string breaking off. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. After a night in prison, I finished a simple meal served early in the morning and was led to the meeting by night. For a felon who attacked seven noblemen for no reason, it was quite generous. Is it because it was VIP? The rope around both wrists was very loose. In addition, there was no other search for as I entered the conference room inside the palace. They must have thought I was an immature spirit who could do nothing without a crossbow. The contradictory treatment of the men was a little funny. Princess Penelope Eckert is entering. The huge door of the conference hall slowly opened with the notification of the servant. The gutter, which was buzzing at my appearance as I stepped inside, quickly calmed down. All high-ranking aristocrats participating in political affairs had been seated. Passing by with my back erect, I found something and my eyes glistened because, like a plague, the plates inscribed with the patterns of each family were in bloom at each place. Thank God, the higher the rank, the more splendid the pattern was. Looking at them frantically with the side glance, I found that I was looking for when I was almost at the end. There it is. There was a pattern that matched the pattern on the dagger. When I identified the man sitting behind it, I was completely relaxed. This is because he was convinced that the story was going well. As I turned my head unconsciously with a sigh of relief, I found those who were sitting on the other side of the table. It was the Duke and his eldest son. The Duke's face was distorted when our eyes met. The scene of her foster daughter, who was brought to the conference room with her hands tied, seemed to be mixed up. Derek's side, no on the other hand, had no change in expression. Favorability 22%. It was 2% less than the last time. I saw it. As a result, a total of 7% of favorability has declined. It didn't go as far as the dead end, but that was because it had been quite a long time since I came here. If it was early in the game, it would have been breathtaking. I don't care. I turned my head coolly from his black top of the head. It was more important for me to break down this episode now than just the favor of the ex. Be careful, everyone. At that time, a serious voice was heard from the front, perhaps to start the trial. An old man with a white head and beard stood in front of the podium, one step below the top seat, where the emperor's throne was placed. The emperor's majesty is on the run, and even the crown prince's majesty is in poison. So I am presiding over the trial in lieu of this law. Raise your hand if you have any objection. No one raised an objection because it had often happened since the Crown Prince went to war. In addition, he was the right person to preside over the trial because he appeared to be a clean and thorough principal in the game. It's no loss to me. Princess Penelope Eckert, yes, you will stand on this trial on charges of killing 7 noblemen during this hunting contest. Swear that you will stand trial faithfully on the honor of the Inca Empire. I swear I will stand trial faithfully, I answered in a gentle manner. Then the Attorney General turned his head and called someone. Then let's start with the victim statements. Self-cultivating work. A man who was sitting at the far end got up and came to my side. In a brief salute to the judge, he began his statement without any hesitation. Yesterday, 7 people, including me, joined forces to go deep into the gold marker zone to catch the bear, and luckily, I was really confronted by a bear. I was on the verge of catching the bear after a frantic struggle. Suddenly, Princess Penelope appears and points us at a crossbow, threatening us to turn the prey over. Oh my, look at her, look at her. The sound of tongues kicking came from place to place. The Duke's face, which was briefly checked, was even more hardened than before. We tried to persuade her to look for another bear because we were the first to catch it. Continue. Then Baron Tullet stepped out to argue with the princess, and at that moment, she shot the crossbow without hesitation. Oh my God, bang. Then the Marquis Allen, sitting on the other side of the Duke, banged his desk and exploded in fury. How can you be so naughty? All the nobles around it nodded violently and agreed. That's right, that's right. Thanks to him, Garboil's self-production was even more enthusiastic. The princess shot the crossbow one by one, and we all fainted. When I woke up, I was back at the campsite, and my only friend, Baron Tollet, Viscount Gobble, turned his head, covering his face as if he was about to go crazy, because he felt sorry for Baron Tollet. The puzzles that led me to be the prince assassin were being put together one by one. I watched the whole situation like watching a comedy. When the final play was in the climax, it was most effective to overturn the board. It was then. I object. On behalf of the Steel Party, someone jumped up from his seat. Favorite, 22%. Derek rose from his seat and calmly opened his mouth. Penelope's crossbow is not for killing at all. It was a real surprise for a person who didn't even look back when I told him to turn off yesterday. I stood up suddenly and stared blankly at him. The crossbow is also a simple hunting for small animals, with only fainting magic and losing short-term memory before being hit by a crossbow. Speechless, but I wonder how he got hit by a Penelope's crossbow and how he remembers the details of what happened before he got hit. Don't lie to me, Viscount Gavoil refuted with a face that earned him. I think it's because he was so hit on the nail. On the other hand, Derek answered without a single change of expression. It's not a lie. We have a wizard standing outside the conference room with his own magic engraved on the crossbow. So let's call him and So let's call him in and check. Little Duke, no matter how much you bend your arms inside, isn't that too much of a perverse? How do we know you bought the wizard? There's a contract I wrote down when I left the request. Derek immediately tried to resist if he wasn't prepared at all, but Viscount Gavail himself stopped talking as if he were shouting. And there are witnesses who have heard the princess say it's her own magic to make someone idiot. Judge, please allow me to hear the testimony of the witnesses. The surroundings were agitated. The nobles had the premise that honor was valued so funnily. They trusted the nobility's testimony more than the little duke who could buy it with money. It's okay, the judge general nodded. Then the door of the conference room opened, as if they had waited, and three people began to walk in. End of chapter 89. Chapter 90. A chair with wheels like a wheelchair pulled to the floor, causing a commotion in the quiet hall. A dwarf man sat on it as if he were lying down, and blue-haired walked along dragging it with an arrogant look. Countess Dorothea followed them with a haughty look. Maliciousness overflowed from the sight of his blue hair, staring at me with burning eyes and laughing at me. I don't know who the villainess is. I'm starting to resent this damn episode. You said I'm the worst villain in the game, and now you're framing a quiet princess. A quiet princess. That's the evil of her. Ha heh, woman, goddess, goddess. But the injustice was soon shattered by a man fluttering on a wheelchair. Goddess, who? Woman, goddess. The man drooled and stretched his hand to me. Stay still. Oh my god. Lady Callan turned pale and held her fiancé. Countess Dorothea was frightened and took a step back. In the end, it was only after the servant tied Baron Tollett's mouth and hands with cloth that the uproar subsided. Lady Callan, testify. The Judge General quenched and calmed the buzzing atmosphere. At the tea party, Princess Eckert pointed a crossbow at us, revealing that she had the magic of becoming an idiot if we were hit. The blue hair stared at me as if it had been waiting and opened its mouth. There were wives and young children from various families, including the host. Countess Dorothea, right, Countess? Yes, yes, I also hear that. Countess Dorothea answered timidly. Looking at me sensibly, she shook herself and shut her mouth when my eyes met. I laughed at her like that. Fortunately, I think my threats are still valid. It was a positive response when the blue hair testimony was over. The Judge General immediately inquired me, Princess Eckert, do you have any objection to Lady Callan's statement? None, I answered briefly. Sure enough, there was a sarcastic voice from the camp of Marquis Allen immediately. Huh? Following last year again. That's what I'm saying. The Duke seems need... Huh? The Duke seems need learned how to educate his children. In an instant, there was a very unfavorable atmosphere for me. Your Honor. Then Derek got up again. He defended me in an urgent tone. In fact, my only sister just woke up from her sickbed. I frowned at his words. It was an excuse that I didn't feel happy about as a normal person. In addition, it's been a day since she went missing and came back. Of course, the ability to discern what is happening now. I'm perfectly sane. I don't think I can listen anymore, so I cut Derek off and stepped forward. When they're done with the testimony, I'd like to make a statement. Penelope, speechless. Derek called me harshly, but I looked at the judge in a casual disregard. The Judge General nodded permission. Start the prince's statement. First of all, except for the testimony of Lady Callan, it's quite different from what I've been through. Such a, calm down, Viscount Gavoil. My self-criticization criticization. My self-criticization was about to contradict me. However, he was quickly silenced by the attention of the Judge General. Thanks to you, I was able to finish my sentence easily. And the circumstances that Lady Callan testified to were only minor jokes and pranks that usually happen at tea parties. I looked around and shrugged as much as I could to look as cheeky as I could. It's very unfortunate that you've been sold this way. What do you mean sold? Lady Callie stared at me and shouted sharply. That's too much, Princess. How can pointing a crossbow at a person be a trivial prank? Wasn't it Lady who asked me to show off my crossbow skills first? And Countess Dorothea will testify whether it's a joke or not. After I answered calmly, I turned to Countess Dorothea, who was standing, rolling her eyes. Lastly, she sympathized with my jokes and led the laughter herself, right, Countess? I grinned like a blooming flower and put silent pressure on it. Are you making up words that I don't? Oh no, yes, yeah, it was, of course. She said she was joking, but Countess Dorothea, blue hair called her as if screaming. Countess Dorothea stammered with a confused face and eventually shut her mouth. I stayed at the tea party for a short time, but it was enough to judge the host, Countess Dorothea. She enjoyed teasing and harassing someone, but she was a mean person who never took the lead. It was easy to understand just by thinking about the words that were secretly added and encouraged behind Kelly. With Kelly's persuasion that she could send myself to the goal this time, it was clear that she came out to pay back the humiliation she had at the tea party. However, such people can't stand the arrow pointing directly at them, and she's afraid of me. The silent pressure worked properly. I didn't hide a sulky smile at her, who couldn't make eye contact with me. But, Your Honor, she almost shot me last year. Your Honor, the brown bear that Viscount Gavoil claims have been my prey from the start. I quickly changed the subject before Kellen tried to water it. It was a completely contradictory argument. The Judge General immediately glared his eyes and became interested. Well, keep talking. When I shot the crossbow, and it was not easy to overpower it completely, the Crown Prince cut it off. Oh no, all the prince's words are false. Viscount Gavale shook his head hurriedly and shouted, If you look at the bear's body, you'll see the answer. I cut off his voice like a knife. If a number of people attacked, as Gavale claimed, wouldn't there be traces of them on the body? I'll check right away. Sir Dennis, check the autopsy and the bear's body. Yes. In my reasonable claim, the Judge General immediately ordered one of the article in the conference room. The work was carried out in a rush. Only Viscount Garbol himself, who was acting with all his might, was embarrassed. Well, it's all because I cut its throat at once. It was a preposterous argument, of course, that didn't make any sense. He also became less and less confident in what he said. Then why was Princess Eckhart in the woods with the Crown Prince? It was then, suddenly the old voice from the left made me turn my head towards it. You've finally made your mark. The puppetry was looking at me with a nervous look, whether it was full of sex. Ano? As far as I know, the crown princess and the princess are not seeing each other properly. I can't believe they were hunting together all of a sudden. At the question asked by Marquis Allen, there was a crowd of people nodding their heads saying, That's right. In fact, after learning that I was accused of being the princess assassin, he expected that he would be forced to bet on that part. Even if I had a sign of the assassin, I had to give everyone a convincing explanation of how the two of them were hunting bears, because meeting him was all the arrangement of the game maker. The word outrageously could not solve the mystery, and it only gives the accused some room to be caught. So I, with tears in my eyes, opened my mouth to trample on, leaving no trace of a little doubt. With the crown prince, we have secret meeting. This is not what I'm saying, it's what the system ordered. I bit my teeth tightly and forced a smile and used out of body narration. I and you, in fact, have a feeling with each other. But nevertheless, my voice trembled. I can't do this. It was a crisis. But it was clear that if I shut up here, they'd find it strange. I must break through this crisis at any cost. At any cost. We have feelings for each other. It was when I managed to clear my throat and finish speaking. What? Boom. At that moment, the table on the right rang with the crash of the desk. The Duke looked at me with his big, tearful eyes. Penelope Eckhart. Well, what the hell is that? End of chapter 90.